Welcome back to Connect and Transform. In this video, we're going to create a regular expression or a regex to match most common US phone number formats. We're using the tool over at regexpal.com. So first, let's just describe the components of a phone number. So we're going to have an optional +1 or 1 for the country code. And then we will have an optional separator. And we're going to call that either a space, a dash, or a dot. And then we're going to have an area code, which cannot start with 0 or 1. So that must be from the range 200 to 999. And then we're going to have another optional separator after the area code. And then we will have the prefix, which is 3 digits. And then we're going to have another optional separator. And then we're going to have the line number, which is 4 digits. And then we're going to have an optional extension, which may be an optional separator. And then we're going to enforce that it would be the character lowercase x or uppercase x, and then any number of digits. And the other thing we want to do is that our area code is either in parentheses or not. Okay, so let's begin writing out the regex portions of this, and then we'll copy that into our regular expression field, and then we'll give some examples and show it functioning. So for an optional +1 or 1, we're going to start out by saying, so we will need to escape the plus symbol, and the plus symbol is optional, so we're going to have a question mark after it. And then we're going to have a 1, and that entire group, so it's either going to be a 1 or it's going to be a +1. That entire group is optional, so we're going to put a question mark after that. So that handles the country code. And then we need an optional separator, so that's going to be a character class that is optional, so we'll put a question mark at the end. The character class can contain a space, a dash, or a dot, but we need to escape the dash when it's inside of a character class because dashes are used when defining ranges. So it could be misinterpreted and create unexpected behavior. So this is our optional separator portion. Now we need to do the area code. So let's do the simple version first, which would just be the digit 2 through 9 to start with, and then it would be 0 through 9 of length 2, and there's a number of different ways we could have written this. We could have also written it like that, but I'll keep it in that form. So this is one option. So we'll put that in parentheses, and then we'll say or, and we'll start another set of parentheses. So the other thing that it could be would be the same digits, but encapsulated in parentheses. So we will need to escape both the opening parentheses and we'll escape the closing parentheses. So this here represents the area code with optional parentheses around it, making sure that it starts without a 0 and it does not start with a 0 or a 1. And then we're going to have our optional separator, which is this line again. And then we're going to have a prefix, which is 3 digits, so 0 through 9 of length 3. And then we're going to have an optional separator. And then for our line number, that will be 4 digits. And then we're going to have an optional extension. So let's start a group and put a question mark after it to make sure that it's optional, and then we'll fill in the group here. So the group will contain an optional separator, and then either a lowercase x or an uppercase x, and then it will contain one or more digits. So 0 through 9 plus. And this now represents our optional extension. And so we've got all the components written. So let's begin our actual regular expression here. So we'll start with the caret symbol, we'll end with the dollar symbol. And then we're just going to copy these in one at a time. So we have our optional country code, our optional separator, our two choices of area code formats, again, an optional separator, and then our 3 digits for the prefix, optional separator, 4 digits for our line number, and then our optional extension. So here we have our entire regex. Let's check it out and see if we've typed it in correctly. So let's start with a simple example, 555-555-5555, and that is valid. And I will mention that we are assuming that the area code is required. We could easily make that optional. So for example, here's the entire area code group. All I would have to do to make that optional would be to encapsulate, for example, the area code and the separator after it into a single group and then make that group optional. So for example, we could have an open parentheses there, a closing parentheses there, question mark. But we're going to stick with area code being expected. So let's try one with area code that begins with 1 or 0. So that's not valid. And that's not valid. Now let's take one that is valid, and let's mix the separators. And we see that is valid, so we're not enforcing that the separators must be of like kind. We're just enforcing that the numbers must be of the right quantities, in the right groups, and the right orders. Let's do one with a country code. So we'll do +1 space with parentheses 555 555-5555. Let's do another common format. Okay, and that's valid. Now let's start affecting some of these that are valid, like let's put an X there. Well, that's not valid. But then if I add a 5, it is valid, because now we're representing an extension. We could have space, capital X, and then any number of digits. But if we have any other letters, and then an extension, it won't match. Okay, let's look at our example here where we have +1. Let's get rid of the plus, and it's still valid. But let's look at this same example, and let's change the 1, which is the United States area code, to any other, or United States country code, to any other country code. So 2, not valid. 23, not valid. 0, not valid. And then let's try one with a dot, just to be sure. So let's say 1.444-656 space 7890. That is valid, and we'll give it some extension. So there we go. I hope you can see through these various examples that this regex is working exactly as we have defined it. And if you wanted it to behave differently, you could define it differently. Thanks for watching.